This is a clip you need to watch. This is a pro-Israel supporter in London being interviewed by a interviewer that doesn't really have a particular stake on either side, just interested in understanding more. He says he's spoken to a lot of people in the Palestinian camp, and this person who's clearly very invested, has a lot of personal connections in Israel and understands the conflict very, very well. He just drops a lot of truth bombs to this interviewer, and I think a lot of people could do from learning from this guy in terms of his uncompromising and clear and confident approach to telling Israel's and the Jewish people's story and exposing the lies that lie not just at the surface, at the core of the anti-Israel and Palestinian cause. You've got to watch this. Take notes. Have a watch.
Let me see if I can get some interviews. Yeah. So let me look. So I'm currently live on YouTube, sir. What I'm trying to do is get good sound. So can you introduce yourself? What's your name?
Max.
So Max, tell me, I'm declaring I've covered a lot of the protests, but from the Palestinian point of view. So I've covered most of the Palestinian protests. It's important I show the other side of the coin. Yeah. So tell me from your perspective why you're down here today.
Well, it's interesting that you covered it from the Palestinian point of view, and I'll tell you why. Because there is a difference between the 2 points of view. One's based on truth and history, and the other one is fiction and fraud and lies. So I think that you should change your terminology. You didn't cover it from the Palestinian point of view. You covered it from the Palestinian Arab point of view, because they don't own the word Palestinian. There are Palestinian Jews like my family. So there has never, you need to put that underlying in your information, there has never ever been, in the history of time, an Arab Palestine. There's been a Palestine, which is a renaming of Israel, but that was never an Arab Palestine. So when people like to show coins and stamps and flags and things of Palestine, they always miss out the fact that it has an Aleph Yud, which is Eretz Israel. It was actually a Jewish Palestine. Certainly wasn't an Arab Palestine. So on that basis, you are not really covering the Palestinian point of view. You may be covering the Palestinian Arab point of view, but actually none of them are actually Palestinian. In fact, I would say that even famously Ismail Haniyeh, who was finally eliminated this week, is Egyptian. And if you look at Palestinian Arabs and their names, you'll find out that their surnames, like al-Baghdadi is from Iraq and al-Mazri is Egyptian. They are not Palestinian Arabs from that part of the land. So if they want to claim an area of Palestine that is theirs, that may well be true. That will be Jordan, which is where the majority are from and are living. So, you know, Jordana, Palestina, which was the area all around, was also to the east of the Jordan River. So that is really where Palestinians come from. It doesn't say that there weren't people from different religions that lived in that land, but I think you have to understand a little bit of truth when you cover it. As an example, there are 150,000 Arabs that lived in that land when Israel declared independence in 1948. There were others that weren't exiled by Israel. They left because they were forced to leave or instructed to leave by Nasser and the surrounding armies from Egypt and others because they were going to commit genocide against the Jews, and they just failed. The ones that remained are Arab Israelis, and today they are 2.5 million Arab Israelis that live with the Jews and there's absolutely no apartheid. I mean, they serve in the army, serve in the police, serve in the courts, and they even fight in the IDF. So that's really interesting, that narrative. When you look at the 950,000 Jews that lived in Arab lands, they are virtually zero. So that's where ethnic cleansing took place, and that's where apartheid took place, and that's where apartheid still takes place.
So if I can come from my ignorant point of view, let's agree on that. Yeah.
You're not,
Let's,
you're not,
no. I know. No.
Can I tell you something? You're
No. I did interrupt you.
I did a very important word. You're not ignorant. You're curious, and that's good. And that's good.
Listen, I'm from the street. Yeah, I'm from the street, and I don't pretend I'm. And I don't pretend I'm not. But can you describe to the people watching, yeah, the atrocities that took place, yeah, when Hamas came? What was that like for... Do you have family in Israel? Can you explain what that's like?
I have all of my family in Israel.
Can you just...
There's 130 of us in my family. I didn't sleep for months. I was scared to phone friends. I will give you an example. I received a voice message 2 weeks earlier from someone I know in Israel who just sent me a voicemail birthday message, which I didn't hear. And then I saw it October 9th, and I messaged him to see how are you, how is your family, hope everyone is safe, thank you for your beautiful message. He said, unfortunately, we've not been so lucky again. 6 members of my family were killed in Kibbutz Be'eri. So I've got goosebumps now. One of my best friends out there was at the music festival and only got away because she took a right turn when she got a text message at the main road to say, don't go the normal way home, go right. Her car behind her with her friends went left, they got killed. Like, to hear people across this world through social media essentially say that it never happened is beyond ludicrous. But it's the same denial that, like people deny the Holocaust, they would deny October the 7th. So I think to understand Israeli psyche, when people say, have you got family in Israel? Yes, I've got 8.5 million family in Israel. And that is, the respect for life. And by the way, not just ours, theirs exists. You'd never see, whether it's on a march or anyone else, any Israeli calling, or Jew calling for the death of Palestinians. But you absolutely hear it in reverse. That is pretty much why this T-shirt is there. As you can see what it says. From the river to the sea, this is the only flag you're going to see. This is not calling for extermination of anyone, but it is the Jewish state. But I think if you really want to understand something, understand this. The most complicit entity, let's call it entity, out there in the suffering of the Palestinian people is media and press. They are the vital cog in the machine between what happens, for example, in Gaza. So they create an incident, launch rockets, ensure that Israel needs to retaliate to essentially save its own people. The media reports exactly the narrative that they want, right? Because they're not a democracy, they're not accountable. They can say any lie they want. Media will willfully put it out there. A load of money gets sent, and then they steal the money. Whether to build tunnels, or whether to live in a 6-star Qatar hotel, that's what the re-up is. That's why every year you have it happening over and over again. So the vital cog in this machine is media and press.
My final question to you, what is the end game? How does it end?
Whose end game? Israel's end game, or the Palestinian end game, or the world's end game? So I can tell you, you need to remove the vital cog in the machine. And that is basically where we started. Lies, false information, fake history, but amplified at a level that people can't understand. So for people that are watching this, I will tell you, there are around 2 billion Christians in the world. There's around 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. There are only 15.2 Jews on the entire planet. That's 8.5 million in Israel, around 4.5 million in the US, and a couple of million or so scattered around the rest of the world. We are tiny. Why am I telling you this number? Bella and Gigi Hadid, those 2 poisonous sisters that have called for genocide against Israel, 85 million followers. So they have 6 times more followers than there are Jews on the planet. Just take that and extrapolate that over all of the news and all of the social media and everything's going on there. We are absolutely swamped. And anyone who watches British press, American press, Western press, social media actually know nothing of the truth. Nothing. It doesn't matter if they don't know what river or what sea they're talking about. They actually know nothing of the truth. There is absolutely no genocide in Gaza. There is an army that has done something that no other army in the world would do. I've spoken to people in the British army. Their ratios are between 5 and 9 to 1. And, Israel is putting its soldiers at its own risk by doing everything. And by the way, the terrorists are getting away as well. When you tap on a roof or send a text message, they know where we're coming, but we care about them. Golda Meir called it many, many years ago. If they learn to love their own children more than they hate ours, that will be the end game. But I will say this, end game is very hard because their end game is different. To make it very clear, this is not about land and this is not about religion. This is only about one single word, ideology. And the ideology, the overarching ideology, is the establishment of a caliphate. Israel is just part one in a Middle East of which we are 0.2% amongst 47 or 49 Arab countries. But that's only step one of the global caliphate. Step two, this is their end game, this is why you asked the question. Step two of the global caliphate is absolutely without question Europe. They discovered long ago that there's two ways to conquer the world. One way is by war, and the other way is to buy it. And they have been buying it. They own 25% of British Airways and 25% of Sainsbury's. They've been putting money through our universities, putting their own professors onto campuses. The end game there is the establishment of a caliphate. The amazing part of that is that the people that are liberal-minded should be absolutely standing right here, right now, with us, not with them.
Anyway, sir, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I don't take sides, but it's important for people like me to come out and engage with everyone. And that's what I'm doing today. But thank you very much, sir.
Would you like our end game?
Go on.
Our end game is that they wake up from the dream that they're in of establishing a caliphate. Actually look at all humans as equal, like Jews do. And, not look at the rest of the world as the infidel, but actually just as humankind. And when Israel and Israelis say we wanted Gaza to become Singapore, we mean it. We want them to thrive and prosper. We want them to educate. We want them to use truth and give themselves a better life instead of just directing their entire life to the death of Israel and the death of Jews. Our end game is peace. It's always been peace. Israel's always given land for peace, whether it was the Sinai and whether it was anywhere else. So that's our end game. And the vital part of that is the West and media waking up. As soon as you take the oxygen away from their fraud and their genocide and their lies against Jews, you take the oxygen, which is information and media, that will lead to an end game. So I hope, whether it's God willing or Allah willing, and I'm not a religious man, that they wake up.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot, yeah.
So there's really a couple things I'd like to say based on this interview. The first thing is that he is absolutely clear that Israel has faced, since her inception and even beforehand, it's been a bullying, lying, smearing campaign. And she's tried to a fault to actually indulge in the lies of the Palestinian cause that's been saying, we just want some land, we want a state. So Israel said, fine, we'll give you land for peace. They've done it time and time again. Of course, especially with Gaza, which was like a mini two-state solution kind of test run, I suppose. And what did Israel get? What did Israel get? Well, she got proof that it's never been about genuine nation statehood on the so-called Palestinian side. And so I think what we can take from this is that it's so important that now we start to have an uncompromising, unwavering approach. That's the only way forward. The other side is like that. They're very clear on who they are, what they want, from the river to the sea. Well, we should do exactly the same. From the river to the sea. They call us, Israel, a Nazi state. Actually, we should say that the Palestinian flag might as well be a modern-day swastika. Because that's all it's about, is getting rid of the Jewish state, getting rid of Jewish sovereignty, getting rid of the Jews, quite frankly, in terms of their ability to protect themselves, have their own state, and live in their ancient, biblical, God-given homeland as equals among the other nations. And so that's something that I took from this and that we should all take from this. Let's stop indulging in the lies. That's the only way forward. People somehow think that we've just got to try and say, I see your side, but we want to protect ourselves and defend ourselves, and we understand you, and come on, let's have a chat, let's sit down. No, sometimes you can't do that with ideologies of hate. We crave for peace and yearn peace, but the way is not through compromise anymore and land for peace and all these things. The second thing is that he spoke about, there's concern about the future. And what does the future hold? And it's concerning about the media being so hostile and politics and activism and all that. It's very important to remember that the future, from a Jewish perspective, and this is why it's so important that we as a Jewish nation are rooted in our Judaism, is to understand that we know from a Jewish perspective, Jewish philosophical perspective, that the future is actually going to be the truth. The future will not be chaos, hate, the demise of the Jewish people, God forbid. We've come too far. I'm sorry, but if you can't look back at Jewish history and see the hand of God in our remarkable story, scattered all over the world throughout most of our history, intensely persecuted, often for opposing reasons. We hate Jews because they're capitalists, communists. We hate Jews because they're rich, poor, inferior, claim they're superior, because they killed Jesus, because they created Jesus, because they are leeches and parasites in our own state, because they created their own nation state. And despite all that, despite also being so few in number, we have survived against the laws, returned to our homeland. Has any other nation had this story of being exiled for 2,000 years, the land being largely desolate, and then they return? It's remarkable. It's the most incredible story. And so it's important that we are grounded in that, knowing that the future actually will be the truth, will be a world that's right side up, that where people acknowledge the truth. And so we are heading that way, even if it might not look like that. And only a faith, a Judaism, can ground you in that. And then lastly, he spoke about what is our end game. Our end game is peace. Well, actually, yes, we do want that as part of that world of truth, is a world in which there'll be peace. But why? What's really our end game? Is saying we just want peace, is that enough to solve the conflict? Well, we've tried saying that for nearly a century, and it's not working. Now, yes, he's talking more about we need to become uncompromising alongside that while still wanting peace, and yes, we should. But I think one little tweak I would add is we need to also articulate who we really are to the world, especially a religious Middle Eastern world. Because they're not accepting that we're just going to be there as some kind of Western ally state there. I think it's about time the Jewish people also, and our leadership, articulate our divine reason for being there, which is that we are God's chosen people, and he assigned this land to us from which to achieve our mission to bring his voice into the world. We haven't tried that before. We tried to impress them with the fact that we're democratic and international law is what established Israel, and that, the modern state of Israel, of course, that's not what actually establishes and sustains Israel, but that's what we say, or even our groundbreaking technology. That's not what's going to cut through. Part of the this obsession, the need of the Hasbara, of Israeli activism, is saying that we want to be treated like everyone else. Stop with the double standards, stop treating us differently. But it's a fundamental misunderstanding, because the world will always treat us differently, because they know that we are different. And so instead of running away from that, I think part of the solution, part of the end game, has to be that we fully come into that role as a nation that is set apart from the other nations, set apart because of our godly mission. And that, for me, is the ultimate root of this whole mission, whole conflict. It's often what fuels actually the anti-Semitism and the hatred, because they're maybe jealous, resistant to the divine mission of the Jewish people. But that's where what it ultimately comes down to. It is a religious conflict, and only a religious answer is what will produce a final outcome. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.